right, so I want to introduce you to some of my friends. Now, some of these people you know. We have Jenny Worsham. Yes. Jenny, tell us about your family dynamic, about your kids.
Yes. Broken mic again.
Well, let's see. Is it on? Try it now.
Hello. Okay, there we go. So I have been married almost 23 years to my husband, Trent. He is also a pastor. And we have 2 kids. I have a 15-year-old that just got his permit, so we are in the crazy learning to drive stage. Yes. And then I have a daughter who is 11, so it is just lots of fun. I'm a CPA, so I also have my own practice and firm and hire moms to work for me, so it's just great.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. Okay, and then we have my friend Sonya. Everybody say hi, Sonya. Sonya is a deep well. She is a deep well and a prayer warrior. Tell us a little bit about you and your family dynamic.
Okay, I've been married. This year will be 30 years. 30 years. I have 2 girls, 28 and 27, and I have a 5-year-old grandson.
Woo!
Yes.
That's amazing.
Super excited. Everything is true about grandparenting. It is the reward for the hard labor. I love my baby boy. I have my first boy. I work for my church. I go to North Place Church, and North Place in the house, yes. And I work for our church there. We have a college extension site there, and I'm the director of that program.
Amazing. Thank you. And then our dear friend Pamela. Everybody say hi, Pamela. If you have watched any of our series on Right Now, then you recognize her face, and we are so thankful that she is here tonight. Pamela, tell us a bit about you and your family.
Yes, well, I've been married for 16 years. We have 2 boys, 9 and 8 years old. And, I work at Lake Point Church in our Espanol campus. And I serve there as the executive pastor of Lake Point en Espanol.
Executive pastor. Yes.
And my husband is also a pastor, so
yes.
We're a pastoral family, and we've been since we got married, so.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay, so ladies, you're each here representing kind of a stage of motherhood. And we have moms in this room that are at all of your stages or are about to be where you are. And so we asked you here specifically to speak wisdom into those different stages of motherhood. And so Jenny, I want to start with you. Not only are you kind of in the middle years, but you're also a working mom, as you mentioned. A boss babe, started her own CPA firm and is crushing. So tell us this, that can be a lot to juggle. And what would you say to a mama here who is struggling with mom guilt because she's also a working mom and is having a hard time doing it all?
Well, I would first say that is completely normal. I think every mom, no matter if you work out of the house or you work in the house, there is guilt no matter where you are. Yes. So if you're staying at home with your kids, you're wishing you were bringing in money to help so you could afford more things or make the ends meet. So no matter which way you go, there's always going to be guilt. So you've got to realize that is not where the Lord wants you to be. He does not want you to live in a place of guilt. He wants you to walk out the calling that He has put on your life. And if that calling is to have a job and to be a witness for Him in your work environment or to provide for your family, then that is where you're supposed to be. And there's no guilt for that. And if your calling is to be home with your kids right now, then that's where you're supposed to be. So don't let there be any guilt from the enemy as to where you're supposed to be. So I would say that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be just to remember, I love the example I was given once, and I read in a book that a lot of times we think we're juggling a lot of balls, and we think, I'm just going to drop them all. I'm juggling so many things. And in this book, the author reminded me that not all of those balls that we are juggling are glass balls. And there are some things in our life that are plastic balls. And you're going to be able to just drop them sometime, and they'll bounce, and you can just pick them back up. So say you burn dinner, that's a plastic ball. You just drop it, you go get Chick-fil-A, and you come back home. So you got to realize that you aren't going to be perfect in everything. You're not going to be able to catch all the balls every single time. But there's some that you say, what is my glass ball? What is the things that are most important to me? And I'm going to focus on that in this season. And that might change over time as to what's most important to you. So just think through that. Don't feel guilt about dropping balls. Just let them go and pick them back up another time.
I think that's so beautifully said. Isn't that so freeing? Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback off of that, balance is a myth. That's not a thing. None of us have balance. And honestly, balance is standing still. And none of us are standing still, right? Balance means everything's in equilibrium at once. That's not any of our lives. So if you have somehow gotten it in your mind that that's the goal you're going for, let that ball drop, baby, because that's not what we're aiming for. Okay, Sonya, you have adult kiddos. And we actually have a lot of moms in the room that have adult kiddos that are in the launching stage. What have you done to maintain healthy relationships with your adult children?
Great question. First of all, I want to say you do survive. I am a survivor. I will say I don't know if anyone ever remember playing double dutch, but sometimes it's a little bit like double dutch. The kids, they grow up, they have their own tribe, they have their own friends, they have their own work. And so to maintain a relationship, a healthy relationship, sometimes it's about not making things be about you. Sometimes it's about you going to them and not expecting them to come to you to spend time with you. Sometimes my oldest moved to Austin, and I said, I'm just going to take a road trip and come visit you. I haven't seen you. And so sometimes it is you sow a seed. Sometimes you sit and you wait for them to say, hey, can you help me? Or can you? So it takes on different forms. I think that what happens a lot of times is when kids get older, parents just think the kids are just going to make their way back to mom, and they're married and they have significant others and responsibilities, and so life just takes on a different look. It's a great look. It's just different. And so when you don't make life be about yourself all the time, you're able to sit in it and appreciate where they're at. Cheer them on. They're doing it. They're doing the thing that you sowed into. They're doing it. And so you cheer them on, and you wait for the season when they call and say, hey, Mom, can you help me with, or Mom, can you? And you're like, yes, yes. And so, and it's fun, too. Can I just say that? Having adult kids is so fun. Yes, yes. Can I just say that? I actually enjoy being with my girls. They're hilarious. They're funny. And so I have fun with it. I have fun with the good, the bad, all the things. When I feel like I miss my girls, sometimes I think that's just the time when I just need to spend with myself, with the Lord, my husband, and because I know they're just busy. They're just busy.
I so appreciate that, because I think for those of us that aren't where you are yet, for me, that gives me a beautiful picture of how I want to be with my adult children. And I think for the women in the room who are in that space, that is such an encouraging message for them. Now, I want to stick with you for a second, because you're also a grandmother. And so we talked about what to do, but I would really love if you could just be really real with us and let us know what you have done that has not worked out so well as a grandmother or with your adult children. Okay.
And this is when I need more time.
Let's go, sis. I'll cut you off.
This is when I need more time. Okay, so I don't know it all, first of all. And so when you have, it's difficult to hold your tongue. I know you can't tell, but I have bruises in my tongue from biting my tongue, like bite the tongue. I have to keep saying to myself that the Lord equipped me. I cried out to him. He equipped me for my two. He's going to equip my daughter for hers. And so my daughter's not raising her son in the same generation that I raised mine. He needs something different. He gave it to her. He gave him to her. And I have to say that to me. He's not mine. 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 But he gave him to her. And so my job as a mom is to pray for her but I do all the things. If we're not doing die 100, we don't do dies. If we're not doing TV, we're not doing TV at my house.
So you follow the rules.
I follow every rule.
Okay.
I follow the rules.
Praise God for you.
Yes,
Can we
I
give her
follow
a
the
hand?
rules. Yes.
Every
I do
mom
all
in
the
here
things.
is like, thank you.
Yes, I do. I do all the things. He has a very good vocabulary. He'll tell on me anyway. So there's that.
But can we talk about, was that
Yes.
hard? Like if she's like,
Yes.
I want to swaddle him, and you're like, he's going to,
Yes.
what? He's a mummy, he's going to die in there, he's going to be paralyzed.
Yes.
Or, you know, she's like, don't do red dye, and you're like, you
Yes.
ate red dye every day of your life, and you're
Thank
fine.
you, and you're fine. Yes.
So, you know, is that
Yes.
you just bruised your tongue, or were there ever
Yes.
times where you're like, this seems crazy?
Well, yes. I will say this. Yes. There's times that I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And usually me and my husband are like, and with the kids, we're like, okay, now what is the rule? Like, what is the rule? But I will say, there have been times that I did kind of stretch and go and not do the thing. Like, we didn't go to bed at 8. We did stay up to 12. Like, we did things. We did things. We did some things. We did some things. And so, you know, sometimes I kind of stretch the rules a little bit. And I just ask God for forgiveness. And I ask my daughter, hey, it didn't work out, you know. It didn't work out. Sorry. Sorry. I tried. I really did. But I have tried to stay the narrow, but I'm not perfect. And so it's difficult now that he talks so much because I have to be very careful because he does repeat. Yeah. And he likes to share if you go against the rule. He cannot wait to tell his mom, guess what Lovey let me do today? Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
That's great, Sonya.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I love that. I think that's such a good picture of how to do that well. I think motherhood from the beginning is always about sacrifice. It's always about putting someone ahead of yourself. And, you know, it seems like in that stage when they leave and launch out of your home, a mama can feel a little untethered of like, what's my place now? What's my role? And to keep that perspective in mind of, I'm here to serve, is just a beautiful kind of way for us to remember as we move into that place. Thank you for that. Pamela, you have 2 young, busy boys, right?
Yes, I do.
And that can create a unique challenge. There are so many of us that have young children, and one of the ways that we struggle as moms is we might have had a good relationship with the Lord where we were consistently reading the Bible and talking to him. And then that part of our life really starts to struggle when we have young kids because you can't hardly get up before them. You know, they're usually waking you up. And if you did make plans, can we just say, if you were like, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and spend time with the Lord, that little baby's in your room at 5:55, you know? And so, you know, I know that's something that you have navigated. What has worked well for you in that space to maintain a relationship? Listen, you're a preacher. You got to make your time for the Lord. It's got to come from a well and overflow. So how are you doing that?
Well, first of all, I think we need to adjust our expectations that we put on ourselves to, you know, with our relationship with God. And I have to admit openly, my relationship with God has not always been, or is not always vibrant and, you know, like fresh and captivating. Like, there are better days, there are better seasons than others. There are times that I feel like so on fire for Jesus and I can't get enough of his word. But there are like times that I'm like, I read it and I just don't feel it, you know, like it doesn't speak to me or like something like that. Or I fall into a routine that I just read because I have to, you know, just mark that checklist. But, you know, so we need to adjust our expectations. It's okay that you don't feel so excited about your relationship with God all the time. But the key is to keep pursuing it. That's the key, is to be consistent, to keep searching, to keep fighting. It's like any other relationship. You may fall into routine times. You may fall into like, you know, you don't want to do it. But like, it's like everything else. It takes work. I wish I could tell you like a romantic or very spiritual way, like, oh, you're going to feel like the angel of the Lord come to you and say, but 99% of the time, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen like that. And sometimes we idealize or romanticize a relationship with God, and we expect my time with God, it has to be like in a cozy couch with a cozy blanket, with my perfect cup of coffee, with a chimney, even if it's like 100 degrees outside, a silent house. It doesn't happen like that. I'm not a morning person. I have tried to get up before my kids. It doesn't work for me. Like, it doesn't work. I don't function, super early. So my time with God is at nights, and most of the time my husband is around. He doesn't get a hint that I'm reading, so he keeps interrupting me. I'm like, don't you see I have my Bible in my hand? Like, just give me a minute. And it's okay. That's why I keep a journal to keep, to remember where am I? Like, what was I reading? I write it down. So my time with God it may look different every day. Sometimes it can be in the car while I'm driving, or it can be like when I'm showering, or it can be, at night or at midnight or wherever. I just have in my mind, I have to do it. I cannot let one day go by without looking or searching for the Lord. And I think it's like anything else. You cannot get fit and athletic without exercising. Actually exercising, I've tried and it doesn't work. As you can see, you have to actually exercise. And it's the same thing. You cannot be close to the Lord if you don't set yourself to pray. You don't set yourself to read, to journal, or whatever that may look like. So there's no other way. It's just you have to do it. And not in a guilt kind of way, like you're going to go to hell if you don't do it. No, you need to. You need to keep pursuing that relationship with God.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. I think what you said is so true, because I think the enemy will use that idealized version of that time with God, and then we get stuck because that's just not happening in our homes. I also want to dismantle for you, if you have been, trying to create a devotion life in your home and have those times with your kids, and they're throwing things and not paying attention and climbing on the couch, or if you're doing it with teenagers and they're looking at their phone, like it doesn't stop. I just need you to know, like, that's super normal. That's super normal. I think when I became a mom, I thought that we were going to have like these family devotion times where everybody sat in the living room and we like read the Bible together. Listen, we're out here trying, but it is a hot mess every time. Like 1 out of 100 times, I'm like, "Ooh, that was good," But it's just, we're just out here doing it. You just keep doing it. You just keep doing the practice. If Jesus said he's the bread of life, we have to eat to live. And so you have got to take a bite from the bread of life every day. And that can look like what Pamela said. That can be, you may have a Bible app and it reads you a scripture every day. That may be praising God in the car on the way to work. That may be you have a routine with your kids where you pray for the day with them while they're in the car. Mama, it may be, y'all, if you're not doing Jesus Storybook Bible, let me turn you on to something great. Because, when you're doing tuck-ins at night and you read Jesus Storybook Bible with them, my goodness, how it ministers to my heart. And that may be where you're getting your bread. So please don't let the enemy use this idealized version of what quiet time is supposed to be to keep you from actually just getting in the Word. Just cry out to him. Yeah. Jenny, we have seen such a huge rise in anxiety in children. It was starting before COVID, but then COVID just really put gasoline on the fire. And so we are seeing this epidemic of children struggling with anxiety. And you have walked this road in your home with one of your own children. So what would you say to a mama who's here today and she has a child struggling with anxiety?
Yes, so I'm not a licensed professional counselor, so please don't judge if you are. And I am just a mom who has walked that, and we have been to professional counselors. So I would say that the first thing as a mom to do when you notice that your kids are struggling with feelings of anxiety or maybe even depression as teenagers is to start getting really involved in what's going on in their life. I think especially as they get older, you feel a little more disconnected and they're on their screens. And so I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit later with our new study, but really getting into, start reading their phone, reading their text messages. Who are their friends? What is going on in their world around them? and see if there's some obvious, really easy to fix situations. Maybe they're being bullied at school, or maybe they're in a relationship dating someone that's a bad situation for them. It may not be it may be a situational anxiety based on where they find themselves. And so being aware of where your kid is and what's going on in their world. It gets harder. I'm seeing that now as your kids start to pull away and start to have their own friends and start to drive themselves places, that you're a little less involved in, sometimes the little details of their life is when they're younger. So I would say that first, and then I think the second thing is if you've done all you can to resolve any situations that are going on, and you realize that there's something deeper that they're really struggling with, the first thing I would do is find a great licensed professional counselor, especially a Christian one, if you are a believer, because they are going to come from things from the same worldview and perspective as you. So I would say that is really important. And get them in there regularly, weekly if you can afford it. And then besides that, really taking this before the Lord was super important in our home. We were able to take our daughter to a place spiritually that I don't think she ever would have gotten to so young if she hadn't walked through this. And so for her to go forward at a night of prayer at our church and to pray with Miss Patchy, I think she's here tonight. Is she? Okay, I don't know where she is. But, okay, so she went forward, and Miss Patchy just happened to be there, who is one of our Gather Mamas, and she prayed over her and gave her the word of having Godfidence, not confidence, in what God called her to. And that was a life-changing moment for her. I'm going to get teary. It was so neat to see her faith grow, for her to see that whatever your kid's struggle is, that can become part of their story and part of their ministry to others. So now my daughter, when she's in school and a kid is having a breakdown, she's over there helping them, with breathing skills and techniques, and it's okay, it's going to be okay, let's work through this together. And she's able to pray for people that are also struggling with anxiety. And so I think whenever our kids struggle with something, whether it's a mental health issue or a physical challenge or anything, I always tell my kids that everybody has something. Yeah. So nobody's perfect. Every kid is struggling in some way. And even if it seems like on the outside they have it all together, they all have something. And so your choice with your something that you're struggling with, you get to choose what to do with that. Are you going to let that control your life and control and destroy your life? Or are you going to let that become not what you're known for, but become your testimony and of how God worked in your life? Yeah. So I don't want my daughter to say, I have anxiety or I'm always anxious. That's not her identity. Right. Her identity is that she's a child of God, that He has called her, that He has redeemed her, and that He has amazing plans for her life. And this is just part of that story. Yeah. So I would say those things. I would also just lastly say that there are many components that go very wide and deep with things like anxiety and mental health. And so there should be no shame, and I think our culture is doing a lot better job of having no shame in mental health help, whether that's you as a mom. And a lot of times, anxiety and depression and things are genetic. Yeah. So it may just be that it's genetically comes down your family line. And so you struggle, so then you see your kids struggling, and you're like, oh, not them too. And that there are sometimes that there is also a biological component and a deficiency of things in your body. So absolutely go to your doctor, talk to them, and don't be ashamed to do what you need to do and the steps you need to take, whether that's medication or counseling or therapy, or we did brain spotting. I mean, there are so many things that they can do to help you. So,
brain spotting?
Yes.
So I think that's really powerful, because my daughter was in second grade when she first started to struggle with anxiety. And it caught my husband and I by surprise. We were just shocked. And her anxiety was related to, she was sure that one of us was going to die or that she was going to die. And so to be able to talk to a 7-year-old and try and work them through that was was overwhelming as parents to know, what do you say to a child to tell them, no, you're fine, you're safe. And then there was a component for me, just like Jenny said, where I'm like, this is my fault. This is my fault because I struggled with anxiety and I somehow passed this on to her. And you start replaying. I thought I tried to keep my cool around her, I thought I was only, anxious when she wasn't looking. And there's this piece, I think, we don't reach out for help because we feel like this is our fault, right? There's so much shame in it. And so there was a lot of freedom, the things that Jenny's talking about, where we both got to study the same material. And there was a lot of freedom for me to understand the genetic component and anxiety, and to look at my own mother and to look at the history and how that was something that I inherited. And just like Jenny said about her daughter, that is one of the things that has kept me tethered so closely to the Lord. It is in that anxiety that I cry out to him. And so I can testify, like Jenny does, that that struggle became one of the sweetest parts of my daughter's life. And then I just want to warn you that we thought we kind of had a layer of it taken care of, and then in 5th grade, it came back, and it was new things that she was anxious about that we needed to work through. And so I'm so thankful that we had a safe community where I could say, I'm struggling. And then it created a safe place when Jenny walked that road to be able to reach out to us and go, what did you guys do? We've got to be able to do that for one another.
Yeah, I would say my mom friends, just knowing Kate and others that had walked that ahead of me, it was like, okay, what else? What did y'all do that helped? And, finding resources. I think you've probably heard us talk about on the podcast, but Sissy Goff is one of our favorite counselors. And if you have a kid struggling, boy or girl, with any kind of mental health issue, her and David Thomas put together amazing resources. And we actually were so desperate, I paid for a 1-hour call with her. And the one thing that she said that stuck with me was sometimes your kids just need an extra help to be able to feel like they're not drowning all the time. So instead of like them swimming and dog paddling all the time in their emotions, that sometimes you just need to raise the level of the pool up a little bit. So for us, that was giving her a little medication to just help lower that threshold so that she felt like she could touch down every now and then, and she just is able to respond back and think more clearly than she was before. So whatever that looks like for you, just knowing that giving your kids the help that they need is more important than you being ashamed of it, than you feeling embarrassed about it or feeling guilty about it, but giving them the resources to know, hey, this is super common. And what Sissy says that I love is that most girls that are the most amazing, stellar, high-achieving, wonderful, bright girls are the ones that struggle with anxiety.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Jenny. I hope that helps some of you in here, that to kind of have those tools and resources. Yeah. Okay, Pamela, I'm going to ask you to tell on yourself, which you're very good at doing, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. But, you have young boys, and for a mom that's just starting out, I would love it if you could be honest with us about maybe one of the mistakes you made early on that you could share with a mom to help prevent her from walking that same road.
Oh, how much time do we have? I always say with my first, I made all the mistakes with my first, and then I did it better with my second. I don't know if anybody feels like that. But first of all, I would say relax. Like with my first kiddo, I was so stressed out. I wanted to do everything right. I wanted to keep the schedule. I wanted to do the nap time correctly. I wanted to, be the best mom for him. And of course, we all want that, but I just wanted everything to be perfect. And I got so stressed out to be the perfect mom for my kid that I kind of forgot to actually enjoy it and to actually embrace that moment. And I kept reading about how to sleep patterns or the sleep training and different techniques for him to sleep through the night. And I kept trying all these things instead of just embracing that time with him at bedtime, So the first thing I would say, just relax. It's gonna be okay. You love your kid. Unless you're like a psycho or something but you love your kid and you want the best for him or for her. So it's gonna be okay? Sometimes we feel the pressure that we can screw up our kids, or if I do something, I'm gonna scar them for life. And we feel all this pressure to be perfect. And I remember one time when I was struggling in the toddler years because I would scream at them a lot. And I remember talking to my mom, like, oh, I don't want to yell at them, and I'm going to traumatize them. And my mom turned to me and she said, are you traumatized? And I was like, no, well, I yelled at you a lot when you were young. And I don't even remember that she would yell at us. I mean, for me, she was the best mom. So, like, I just think, number one, just relax, okay? Just, it's going to be okay. You love your kid. He's going to be okay. And the second thing that I would say for you is that sometimes we hear a lot that we cannot do it all. And yes, we cannot do it all. But you can do all things through Christ. So sometimes, like, even though, like, we're talking about working moms, and we're talking about serving at church, and we want to be the best wives, and we want to do it all, and it's not about doing it all, it's about doing everything through Christ that strengthens us. And if you go to him, and if you cling to him, and you depend on him, I mean, it's not upon you. It's not upon you to raise your child. It's not upon you to make them men and women of God. It's not upon you or your shoulders. The weight is not on you. The weight should be on Christ. You should just cling to him and look for him, and through him, you will do it all. So that would be the two things that I would say to them.
I think that's amazing. Yeah, give her a hand. Thank you. All right, hey, these women are a deep well, and they're going to be around tonight. And so if you would like to talk with them, you're going to have the chance to do that. But could you give our panel a big hand? Thank you so much, ladies.